AML. AML disputed whether it was in default. The Third Amendment essentially eliminates AML past default and gives it wide latitude for using debt financing going forward by eliminating most of the effect of accumulated losses from the definition of equity and purposes of the NDA. Annual surface rental payable by AML changed from a fixed rate of $300,000 to a rate payable under the money pool and revenue pool. Annual payments by AML under the NDA have been indexed for inflation. Late penalties imposed. A schedule for monetary penalties is established for failure to take actions by deadlines under the NDA, in addition to penalties described elsewhere. This provides the government with a remedy short of termination for these defaults. Put a Buchanan operating framework document. The Third Amendment does not make any significant changes in AML's code operations, but it does provide for more detailed documentation of those operational procedures through the code operations agreement to be entered into between the National Code Authority and AML. Establishment of more detailed process for third-party access to the railroad and capacity expansion for railroad. This was the key objective of the government from the outset. The RSOP tells out in detail the process of new users to apply for and be granted access rights to use the railroad and expand the capacity of the railroad to meet their needs. The government has sole description of approval to approve access and capacity expansions with input from the Joint Management Committee comprised of users. Establishment of procedure for selection and appointment of independent rail operator. The RSOP spells out the process by which a GOL will select and appoint an independent rail operator through the public procurement process. The selection is made solely by the government based on the criteria established in the RSOP. Establishes rights and duties of users on the road.
You got 1 minute or something?
1 minute. Yeah. So provides. So let me just go to the right. So under the RSOP, what protects the government's interest under the protection of the government interest under the RSOP require government approval of any amendments to the RSOP. Require government approval of certain policy decisions by the Joint Management Committee. Government, through its non-voting membership on the JMC, can initiate proposals at the JMC. Government members will act as chair of the JMC meetings. So, honorable senators, honorable chairman, and distinguished members, in summary, the Interministerial Concession Committee has negotiated this concession in good faith, fully cognizant of the needs of the Liberian people. As such, I submit on behalf of Chairman Jeff Lego. Thank you.
Lego.
Thank you. Honorable Chair.
So we move to the issue of labor.
Honorable Chair, distinguished member of this committee. As you are aware, the Ministry of Labor is charged with responsibility to administer the affairs of labor in the Republic of Liberia. For the purpose of this hearing, we will highlight key points in this third amendment that the country and the people of Nigeria, including the community, stand to benefit if it is ratified by you, which by God's will we know you will do, because it's all in the interest of every one of us. Within this amendment, it provides some of the benefits that you will see in the amendment includes job and liberalization management. Under job and liberalization management, the amendment provides that within 1 year of ratification, at least 50% of the job that will be provided by AML will be given to Liberians. It also provides that within 1 year of the ratification, if that is done, at least one of the top 4 managerial positions, which include the CEO, CAO, the CFO, and COO, will be occupied by Liberians. It also provides that absolute preference will be given to Liberians in terms of job that Liberians are capable to do if that vacancy exists. That means the inflow of foreign nationals that we all continue to complain from, to graduating from, bringing people from our country to come and do the job that Liberians are supposed to do. So this provision also stands to benefit all Liberians if this amendment is ratified. You will also see in the amendment that there will be technical and vocational training school constructed in Grand Bassa County. It also provides for yearly support to people from the affected communities. Lima, Bassa, and Grand Bassa County. Residents of those affected communities, the amendment provides that if it is ratified, there will be priority given to them to train them to become geologists and mining engineers, since their focus is in those directions. So that means the affected communities that have been crying over the time, they will now stand to benefit if the amendment is ratified by this body. Again, the reason why we from the end of labor, we feel it is necessary for this body, all body, to ratify this amendment is that our citizens continue to cry for a job. They come into be a vocational training school. The fact that the amendment provides that there will be opportunity for Liberians to go abroad and learn. There will be opportunity to sponsor people from the affected community annually to go out and acquire knowledge to come back. It means they are graduating from importing foreign nationals to come and take lucrative salaries and benefits that they carry out there and develop their own area, but now will be training our people who will be capacitated to do the job. Air proceeds from air proceeds from that will be right in country and will develop our economy. Honorable Chair, a member of this body, I'm pleased to let you know that the song representation as NL, but this is my recommendation. I would recommend that, while it's true that this agreement is very much in the interest of the country, as you all are aware, we also, on the basis of collaboration, will also depend on you upon ratification. The team continue to work together. Your oversight should be with us as implementing agency and institution to make sure what all existing or at place this amendment can come to fulfillment so the people of Nigeria can benefit. But all the work of the amendment is good and we're quite sure that you will work to rectify. Thank you.
I thank you for your presentation. Now listening to you.
Anthony Myers, Deputy Minister of Finance and Fiscal Affairs. We have the testimony I want to give.
To my recollection,
And to my recollection,
Our guests from the executive have given us some very beautiful speeches on our own. Can we get a copy of these speeches so that we can form part of our oversight for compliance later?
You brought copy of your speeches?
All of those who made presentation, do you have them soft copy or hard copy for our file for future reference for oversight?
yes,
Okay, so please send it to the chair. And we will.
Okay, thank you. I'll submit my soft copy to the chair.
You have your time. You write the time.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman, and my apologies to the committee and the Senate for not being here from the start because I didn't know the communication was routed through our IMTC chairman. I just saw it when one of the officials here called me. So my apologies again. So I sit in for the Minister of Finance. And I'm the acting minister because it's away on national duties in Switzerland. And the Ministry of Finance is an integral statutory member of the IMCC. And the Ministry of Finance was also fully involved with the negotiation with ArcelorMittal Liberia. And one of the most intense part of the negotiation towards the end happened to be the fiscal provisions. The Ministry of Finance, assisted and supported by the Liberian Revenue Authority, was interested in ensuring that the fiscal provisions in the proposed third amendment mark significant improvements on all previous amendments, including the existing one that is due to expire in 2030. So even before Oral Dillon made the request, I already flashed the document I'm about to read from to some of the members whose number I had. That includes Senator Tyler, Senator Twine, and one other person. So I hope you can please extend my hand in that regard.
Please send it to the chairman.
Okay, then I will get the chairman's number and send it. Okay, thank you very much, Senator. Okay, so the summary here provides a series of revenue provisions from the Liberia Revenue Code. And what were the changes made in the proposed amendment compared to the existing one? So I begin with income tax, corporate income tax. Under the revenue code, the minimum concession you can grant to concessions emitter is to lower the rate from 30% to 25%. So that has been in existence. And also in 2024, we introduced the amendment to the corporate income tax for concession, mining and agricultural concession, which require them to pay 2% of their gross revenue in advance on the quarterly basis while waiting for the end of year or tax analysis or income and profit analysis. So they were subject to the 25%, but not a 2% presumptive. So as a result, we had to wait to the end of the year for profit to be declared before we can tax. So under the new regime, the 25% were retained as part of the negotiation, but the 2% minimum tax was introduced. A presumptive tax was introduced. But more than that, we also introduced what we call a high yield surtax, and that's about 5% of the corporate income tax. Meaning, in the event where iron ore prices go above what we projected, along with AML at the beginning of the year, when the actual prices during the year exceed that, that is considered super profits or windfall revenue. So that windfall revenue will therefore push the tax rate now to 30%. 5% will be levied. In addition to 2% on the excess, on the margin. Say price of projected at $100, iron ore price goes to $150. 2% of that $50 will be taxed. Then the applicable tax rate for that year will be 30% instead of the negotiated 25%. Then interest deduction. Under the current regime, meter can deduct 50% of their interest from gross revenue or the earnings before tax and interest deduction. So what that does is that the base profit or the base revenue that is subject to taxation is reduced. So under the new arrangement, in fact, the revenue code requires 20%. So through the negotiation, we settle on 25% instead of the current 50% of interest deduction that is applied. So what that means is that more resources are left for tax purposes. Instead of 50%, interest deduction is now 25%. And then depreciation rates. As it is, all assets are depreciated on a straight line basis. But under the new arrangement, depreciation will go straightly by the revenue code requirement, where assets are distinguished between tangible fixed assets and other type of assets. And even among the categories of tangible fixed assets, the assets are depreciated on the asset by asset basis. For example, buildings and railroad track, for example, or installed plants, those are different type of assets, so they will be depreciated differently, rather than just a straight line and single rule for all type of assets. And then loss carry forwards. The revenue code requires 7 years I mean, 5 years already. The amendment, the new amendment require 5 years. Negotiation, we wanted to, well, we actually pushed for the 5 years, but the negotiated rate is now, carry forward period is now 7 years. And this was mainly in consideration of the type of industry. The type of industry, because this is where heavy equipment are involved. The period between acquisition of those assets, installation, and put into production, it takes significant time before actual production can happen on a given borrowing. So we're flexible in that regard by carrying it from 5 years as is the old to 7 years. Then royalty. One of the main issues that have bothered all policymakers has been why meter has not been determined or declaring. Okay, no, sorry, this is royalty. So the current royalty rate is 2 to 3% based on what is discussed. The revenue code say 4.5%, and so the new proposed amendment went by the revenue code requirement of 4%. And the payment initially was done at 45 days after shipment, or 45 days after the end of the quarter in which the royalty is due. But this time, it starts with shipment 30 days after the date of shipment. So if it's shipped today, January 21st, February 20th, we expect the payments. And then there is a resource rent tax. The resource rent tax is pretty much the application in this agreement, the same as a high yield tax, which is a 5% additional CRT during the year where there is a high yield. Surface rental. The revenue code in section 704 have various provisions for surface rental. There is 20% per acre for exploration, $5 per acre for license for the first 1 to 10 years, and then $10 per acre for license contract from 11 to 25 years. So meaning the 25-year period of this agreement, the surface rental will be staggered. If meter is to go into any new exploration in any other part of the concession area or anywhere else, that will be the staggering of it. The first part for exploration only, it will be 20 cents per acre. Then for 1 to 10 years, that will be $5 per acre, and then after 10 years, that's 11. That's $10. Import duties. I will speak more to import duties as a separate thing from this, so let's skip that. Then custom user fees. Yes, they are subject to the 1.5% of CRF value at all Liberian ports. This was not included explicitly at that because it was just capped at $10,000 per item, but now it's 1.5% of CRF value. Then GST, as it is, they were exempted from GST, but right now they will be subject to all GST or all items as required by the LRC, except those things that were exempted specifically in the concession agreement. Dividend, okay, I was talking about dividend earlier. So as it is, there is no provision for dividend in the current agreement, but the new agreement, proposed agreement, requires for AML itself 3.5% of dividend on their profit. Third parties, other than the government and GO, and of dividends, then 5%, the current agreement say 5% for, now this is for the distinction between resident and non-resident in our code as to what interest can be charged on certain services. So the law now say 5% for residents, so Meter Liberia being a resident. But this doesn't apply to Meter holdings, that means other affiliates outside of Liberia, but it's only after Meter Liberia. And then services. We know ArcelorMittal procures services for work from many sources, domestic and external. So under our new provisions, 6% for service providers, they have to do withholding of 6% or whatever fees they pay to service providers. The capital structure. The capital structure, meaning how much of debt compared to overall equity we accept, is 3-to-1. As it is, there is no specific provision. In our negotiation, Meter was proposing 4-to-1. We said no, 4-to-1 will mean a greater interest deduction on debt, which will depress our available revenue. So the debt to equity ratio negotiated in this contract is 3-to-1. And I'm sure if the Ministry of Internal Affairs, of Mines and Energy are presented, there was an increase in the Social Development Fund from 3 to 5 million. And I was talking earlier about the custom provisions. As attachment 7, attachment 5 to the agreement, there's a list of more than 20, up to 25 items that are subject to import duty adjustment, in some cases waivers. But one significant change we made this time is that all of the items included on the list of adjustment or waiver are investment related, things that will be needed as part of the build-up process, not items that are brought for regular use, whether by employees or management or others. So a typical example is on number 18. Education supplies is included as materials for custom duty exemption or negotiation, but we excluded stationery. So stationery, so what this means is that stationery as an indication or process for the kind of commodities that they had essential on in the past, like toiletries and no regular things we find in our merchandise, will no longer be subject to duty waiver. And we also included further in this discussion in the negotiation, it will also be seen is that there were provisions, it's not in my note, but it's like a referencing the contract, that the first port of call for energy use for Meter will be our public grid. To the extent that wherever they are operating, whether in Nimba, Bong, or Buchanan, to the extent that there's available capacity on the public grid, Meter will be required to use that as a first port of call. They are not prevented from doing self-generation, but where there is capacity on the public grid, it will be required to buy from the public service provider. So those are just some of the improvement we made in the fiscal and other provisions. So with that, Oral Chairman, I submit.
Okay. We were going to reject the justice. Oh, okay. So justice, please take a stand.
Honorable Chair and members of this wonderful committee, much has been said. I would not want to bore you with additional information. Justice Ministry just took cognizant of the fact of Article 3, Section 2C of the agreement, which require that the terms should be fair and reasonable. And we think from everything that has been said, the new amendments that are made to this agreement, we consider them to be fair and reasonable for Liberia. And so at this stage, I will submit, and we'll look forward to any legal questions that we need to answer.
Okay.
So that's short by the Ministry of Justice. So all of the witnesses have completed their
So just two questions, I'll let you know from
testimonies.
During the period that EMS mine, what's the quantity of fuel that has been mined? That's one. What has been the fuel for the investment? And then how much revenue has been generated?
There's a question that's coming from Mark become this in
Honorable Chairman and distinguished member, with respect to the question as it relates to the quantity of open mines as Africa started living for, the data is there, but we don't have the exact figure yet, but we will furnish the committee with this before the end of the day.
Do you also have an idea on
Investment of those money?
So I got two questions. The total investment, the volume of whole mine, exported, and how much has been generated from what is exported.